We have representatives from the different academies that can answer your questions, and folks from the delegation that can answer any congressional questions. We will have some time for some Q&A at the end of the program, but feel free to use the chat box as we begin our presentations. To start things off, we're going to have a welcome video from Senator Martin Heinrich and one from Congresswoman Teresa Fernandez. So if we can start with those videos, that'd be great. And as a reminder, please keep your microphones on mute.
I did pause that. I just wanted to confirm you could hear Miguel. Could you hear the video?
I don't believe anyone can hear the sound.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Share sound. I will start it over. If you could give me a thumbs up on your video, if you hear it, that would be great.
To our nation's military service academies. As the chairman of the Military Construction and Veterans Affairs Appropriations Subcommittee, I'm committed to supporting the strongest, best trained, most well-equipped military in the world. Our service academies play an essential role in educating and training the military leaders who will keep us all safe in the decades and years ahead. It is always inspiring to see so many New Mexico students who are eager to apply for admission to our military academies and serve our nation. I hope that today's information session will provide each of you with helpful guidance about our service academies. You'll hear directly from representatives from each service academy and also from ROTC programs at colleges and universities in New Mexico. As part of this process, I'm looking for applicants from every community and background in our state who demonstrate exceptional leadership qualities. I'm committed to running a transparent and inclusive academy nominations process that ensures every interested New Mexico student has an equal shot at this honor. I'm grateful to all of you for joining today and for your willingness to serve and your initiative. I encourage each of you to reach out to my office if you have any additional questions that we can help answer or if we can connect you to additional information. Thank you so much. Hi.
Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Fernandez, representing New Mexico's beautiful and beautifully diverse 3rd Congressional District. We want each of you to learn about what you need about our service academies and whether you might want to serve our country through attending the academies. These academies are among the top-rated universities in the country and provide students with an excellent education as they begin their service in our military branches. I'll have the great privilege of nominating exceptional students to a service academy. We're looking for someone who will represent our beautiful state with honor and pride, someone who is not only a great student, but a great leader and community member. New Mexico has a long and distinguished history of service in our armed forces. I know that you would make our state proud. I wish all of you the best of luck in this process and look forward to seeing your applications. Please call my office if you have any questions, 505-428-4680. That's 505-428-4680. Muchísimas gracias. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. So this is going to be an overview of the nomination process for New Mexicans interested in attending one of the 5 military academies: the U.S. Military Academy in West Point, New York, the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, the U.S. Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the U.S. Merchant Marines Academy in Kings Point, New York. The U.S. Coast Guard Academy in New London, Connecticut does not require a congressional nomination. For students who want to experience a military environment while getting a first-class education, the service academies offer an outstanding education and full 4-year scholarships.
I got you.
Ooh, we've got, we can put our on mute. Perfect, thank you. Tuition, books, board, and medical and dental care are all covered for all 4 years. Graduates of all academies receive a Bachelor of Science degree and are commissioned as officers in the respective branches of service. After graduation, they are obligated to serve a minimum of 5 years. Can we look at the next slide? I think we lost the slides.
I'll be right back on it. My apologies.
No problem. Yeah, and here we are. So in terms of who can make a nomination, well, there's 2 types of authorized nominating sources. There's congressional and service-connected. Tonight, we'll be focusing mainly on the congressional nomination process, and that consists of getting a nomination from either Senator Heinrich or Senator Lujan, or depending on which congressional district you live in, the 1st Congressional District, Congresswoman Herrell in the 2nd Congressional District, and Congresswoman Fernandez in the 3rd Congressional District. You can also receive a congressional nomination through Vice President Harris's office. If you're interested in one of those, feel free to visit the Vice President's website to get more information. For service-connected nominations, these are reserved for children of career military personnel. If you qualify under this category, I would recommend you reach out to your branch that your parent serves under to get more information. The next slide. So who can apply for a nomination? The main requirements are, as of July 1st of the year of admissions to an academy, you have to be at least 17 years old, but not have passed your 23rd birthday. You must be a US citizen, you must be unmarried, not pregnant, have no legal obligations to support children or any other dependents. If you meet all these requirements, you're able to apply. Next slide. The application basically consists of a questionnaire that includes essays, submitting ACT and/or SAT test scores, submitting your high school transcript, letters of recommendation. If you submit all of this by the due date of October 8th, which is a hard deadline for all of the congressional offices here in New Mexico, then you will be guaranteed an offer to interview for a nomination. Next slide. So the application packet is basically your opportunity to tell us all about yourself. You will indicate your school and community activities, any athletic involvement, your honors and awards, and participation in programs, any work experience. Utilize this time to highlight any activities you've been involved in, any leadership roles that you've had. Give us a sense of who you are as a student. You can also have the opportunity to rank your academy's preferences. If there's only one academy you're interested in, then that's the only one you have to highlight and list. But as for the rest, if you have multiple schools you're interested in attending, you can rank them in order. You will also be required to provide an essay or more. For Senator Heinrich's office, 2 essays are required. Next slide. You'll be submitting your ACT and/or SAT test scores. You can take these tests as many times as you'd like. The delegation uses a super score method, meaning we will look at the highest score in each content area to boost your overall composite. Your test scores come directly from the ACT or SAT offices to us. Each congressional office has a unique code that you will see in the profiles you create when you do a profile for the Senate offices or in the application packets you receive from the House offices. You'll also be submitting your official transcript. This should provide your fall schedule and also have an unweighted GPA. If you are taking any college courses at this time or are attending college, please also send us those transcripts so that we can see what you've been involved in. Next slide. You're going to be providing 3 letters of recommendation, 2 that are from an academic source and 1 that is non-academic. For your letters of recommendation, be sure you take the time to think of who you're going to ask to provide this for you. You want someone that is going to take the time and make the effort to highlight your characteristics, your leadership qualities, and your qualifications to attend an academy. If you go for an individual that does not really know you, you run the risk of getting a letter of recommendation that's somewhat generic and tells us nothing about you. Be sure you find someone that will make an effort. Next slide. For the Senate side, you will go to each office's websites to create a profile. Once you create your profile, you'll have access to your application and this, your checklist. The checklist is basically your best friend. It's going to tell you what is pending and what's been received to complete your packet. You will be constantly reminded of your due date on the right-hand corner. Our due date again is October 8th. If you see something missing in this list that you know has been submitted, feel free to call our office so that we can verify that. But again, utilize this list to see what is lacking in order to fully complete your packet. Next slide. So now, as I mentioned on the Senate side, everything is done online. For the House side, it's a bit different. Things are submitted in a packet. The 1st Congressional District is going through a special election. So after the end of this month, hopefully we'll know who our new 1st Congressional District member will be. He or she will determine what they're going to require for their military applications, but generally it will consist of an application, essay, letters of recommendation, test scores, and/or ACT and SAT scores. I would recommend that around mid-June to early July, checking out their website to see what they have in terms of requiring this or giving their offices a call. And this will apply to any student that lives in the 1st Congressional District. Next slide. For those of you in the 2nd Congressional District, Congresswoman Yvette Herrell is your representative. You can obtain an application for her office by calling the Las Cruces office or reaching out to Tina Donahue, and they will provide you with a packet. You'll have to provide an essay, a resume, 3 letters of recommendation, your academic transcripts, test scores, a recent photograph of yourself. You are also asked to verify that you have applied with the academy or academies of your choice. And if you have everything submitted by the deadline, you will be guaranteed an interview for November 6th. Next slide. Those of you in the 3rd Congressional District, Congresswoman Teresa Fernandez is your representative. She requires an application, essay, a resume, 2 letters of recommendation, a transcript, your test scores, and again, if you submit everything by the deadline, you will be interviewed on November 6th. And this applies for all the students that live in the 3rd Congressional District. If you're unsure of which congressional district you live in, feel free to give our offices a call, and we'd be happy to help you with that. Next slide. For the Senate side, if you submit everything on time, that interview date will be November 13th. Both offices conduct them at the same day, but we work together to make sure that you do not have conflicting interview times. So that will not be an issue.
Are you feeding her?
Yeah. Ooh.
Don't forget salmon.
For the interview process, be sure you are prepared. Ooh, I think I got muted. Sorry about that. Be extremely prepared for your interviews. The interviews play an extremely important part. If you're not accustomed to being interviewed, ask your parents, ask the speech and debate coach at your school, ask an employer if you have a part-time job to interview you and get you accustomed to answering questions. You'll be asked questions that you provide answers to in your applications and your letters of recommendation. So do not feel intimidated by the interview process. Be sure you dress to impress and you show up on time for your interviews. Next page. Now, these interviews will be conducted by nomination review board members. These are individuals that help both the senators and the members of the House of Representatives to select our nominees. These individuals are ex-military, current military, former academy students, or community leaders. They will be looking at your application packets, reviewing your letters of recommendation and essays, your test scores, and will be conducting the interviews to see your academics, your extracurricular activities, your grit, your personal motivation and character, your self-assurance and poise, and your commitment to the military service. They will utilize all this information to make recommendations to the delegation. And again, this plays a very important part in making our decisions on terms of who we nominate. Next slide. In addition to applying with the congressional offices, you have to apply with the academy or academies you're interested in and attending. Just because you receive a congressional nomination does not guarantee you will get into the academy. We have had students that get a nomination from the congressional offices, but never bothered to apply to the respective academy they were interested in, and hence were unable to get accepted. So be sure that you apply with the academies, and in doing so, you'll be required to not only submit your applications, but do a medical examination and a fitness test. More information on this will be provided later on. Next website or next slide. So how many folks do we get to nominate? The New Mexico Congressional Delegation uses a competitive process. That basically means that for every opening at an academy, each member of the delegation will submit 10 candidates that are unranked. Then the admissions office for that academy will select the most qualified and appoint that individual to the member's office. The remaining 9 students all still have nominations and will be put into a global pool for opportunities to get them an offer to attend the academies. So do not fret. There have been instances where all 10 individuals we submit get an offer. And as of right now, I believe the entire delegation has at least 1 opening per academy. Next slide. Important dates to keep in mind. We began this process on April 5th. October 8th is our hard deadline for all offices. There is no exception to this. So be sure you get everything submitted by that date in order to be offered an interview. Again, interviews will be taking place on November 13th for the Senate offices, November 6th for the 2nd and 3rd Congressional District, and a date to be determined for the 1st Congressional District. By mid-December, we usually have our nominees and we'll be informing you of who we've selected. Next slide. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our offices. Check out our websites, and we look forward to hearing from you and helping you along this process. Thank you very much. And I believe we're now ready for the Air Force Academy.
Hello, can you see me? Hear me? All good? Okay, so I'm Second Lieutenant Bolton. I'm from the Air Force Academy. I'm currently serving as an admissions advisor in the Los Angeles area, but I'm also covering a bunch of different areas now as my colleagues head to pilot training. I'll be going to pilot training soon too, so if you have any questions about that, throw them in the chat for me. So our mission is to educate, train, and inspire men and women to become officers of character, motivated to lead the United States Air and Space Forces in service to our nation. So we are going to be currently the only commissioning source, so Air Force or Air Force ROTC, to commission into the Space Force. I'll get a little bit more into that later. So we're ranked really high against other colleges. We're #3 public college, and as you can see, we're ranked really well in all of our engineering, but also I was a business management major, and we're top in the nation for that as well. So it doesn't really matter what major you choose. Next slide. No matter what, you're going to be taking engineering courses, all different kinds of math, so calculus, chemistry, physics, and then aero, astro, all those things. We have the most majors and minors offered out of any of the academies. So anything you see here, you can do as a major, and then the minors are the ones in asterisks. Everybody does almost 92 semester hours of core classes as well. So everybody gets a Bachelor of Science when you graduate from the academy. I think that's the same across all academies. Next slide. So athletics, you can do D1 or club. So I actually played club lacrosse and club water polo all 4 years at the academy, and it's a competitive team. So you practice all week long, go to tournaments on the weekends. And then, so similar to D1, but not quite as rigorous, and obviously a different level of competition. But you can be recruited to the academy. However, there's no actual scholarship since everybody goes to the academy for free anyway. Next slide. So the academy experience involves just about everything that you can think of. So our summer programs, just being at the academy in general, the sports, but then we also offer different immersion programs, exchange programs, summer research programs, just like any normal college. So you can also go to another academy. So you could go to Army or Navy for a semester. You could go to a normal college and do ROTC for a semester. You could go to an entirely different country, especially if you minor in language. And learn about their culture. And then you can also not transfer, but do a semester at a foreign service academy. So I had some friends that went to, literally just like any country. One of them was the Colombian Air Force Academy, any country that we're allies with. And then Ops Air Force is a 3-week program in the summer that you do, and you shadow another officer at a base and you stay there. So you get to see what it's going to be like at a later time, when you're going in for your job. Next slide. So these are some of our summer programs. I actually was able to do powered flight jump, which is the skydiving, and then the soaring program, which is our gliders that you see there. We also have RPAs, which are our drone program, cyber program, all different kinds of summer activities that you can do. So you'll be doing one of those things almost every summer for a 3-week period of time. We're in Colorado Springs, Colorado, as I mentioned earlier. And beautiful place, camping, skiing, really anything outdoors that you want to do. We are at 7,500 feet though. So can you guys still hear me? Or is that just, someone said lost audio? Just want to make sure everybody can hear
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Next slide. So we have 35 different career fields that you can go into after the Air Force Academy. 50% go pilot. So like I mentioned, I'm actually waiting to go to pilot training right now. I'll be heading to Texas in August for that. 10% will now graduate into the Space Force, and then 10% into graduate school. And so that can be law school, med school, really anything. And it's completely paid for by the Air Force. And you would go directly there after graduating and still only owe 5 years unless you go med school, then it might be a little bit longer. But it does run concurrent. So you don't owe any extra time if you get it done before and then keep going. That's a question that we get a lot. So how to get started, the best way is go to academymissions.com. And if you are a junior in high school, then you hopefully applied for our summer seminar program. So our summer seminar will be completely virtual this year, actually. So you should have heard back for summer seminar if you're a junior. If you're a sophomore, get ready sometime next year to start applying for the summer seminar. You can fill out a pre-candidate questionnaire as well. If you're a junior or a sophomore, going into your junior year, and that will, or if you're in your junior year next year, and that will get you going on your application process. But the best way to find any additional information is academymissions.com. And then this is just some screenshots of how the deadlines kind of work, but that'll be on Academy Admissions. So for the application, you have to be academically, physically, medically competitive and qualified, have good character and leadership, and make sure you get a nomination like they spoke about before. Next slide. So to be academically competitive, we actually have no minimums, unlike the ROTC application process. However, these are our averages, and that's good to note because obviously it is highly competitive academically. And so, number one in the class, that's 8%, but then top 25% in their class makes up almost 85% of the entire academy. And then average high school GPA of 3.85. So just make sure you're keeping your grades up. Make sure you get your test scores done. I know that it's been difficult with COVID, but especially if you're a junior, sign up for every single one and do the best you can. Next slide. Physically competitive, you're gonna have to do the CFA, which is outlined on our Academy Admissions website, which is the physical evaluation that you'll do. So it's like, mile run, pull-ups, push-ups, that kind of test. And then the DODMERB is you getting an actual physical exam from a doctor. Both those are required for admissions. Next. nominations. They already went over this, so I'm not going to press too hard about it, but everybody can apply to your 2 U.S. senators, U.S. rep from your district, and then the vice presidential nomination. So for the class of 2024, we're just finishing up with 2025, so we can't put those numbers out yet, but last year, our applicants, we had almost 11,000, candidates 9,000, and then when we say qualified candidates, that means people that actually finish their entire application. So as you can see, just finishing your application gives you a much higher chance of getting into the academy. So qualified candidates were 4,325, and we let in around 1,200 a year. So we let in 1,145 last year. And we usually graduate with just under 1,000. So pretty good rate of keeping people at the Air Force Academy. Personally, I had a great time. If you have any questions, I'm going to put my contact information in the chat here, and I'll be watching for question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Bolton. I believe I'm up next. I'm the Air Force ROTC recruiting officer at the University of New Mexico, and I'm also one of the professors here and instructors for Air Force ROTC. Air Force ROTC is similar to the Academy, except it's at your local university. So those of you who want to stay closer to home, or whatever avenue you're pursuing doesn't work out, that doesn't mean your journey towards your commissioning has to end there. Air Force ROTCs are not only at University of New Mexico, but are universities across the nation. And our goal is similar to the Academy, to develop future leaders for the Air and Space Force, future guardians with the rich history of our past. And then the ultimate goal is get you graduated with a degree and commissioned into the United States Air Force or Space Force. Next slide. We have several programs, especially speaking to the high school crowd. We have the high school scholarship program. And the thing I would like to encourage you all with that is, as you're pursuing any of the commissioning sources you're looking at with the Services Academy, go ahead and try to apply simultaneously to the ROTCs. There's nothing that we have no issue with knowing that we're working in tandem. And in fact, many of our applicants we know are pursuing multiple avenues, and we want to assist that. So you have high school scholarship programs, so they usually are on the same timeline as the academies. I encourage you, go to airforcerotc.com if you're looking for the Air Force, and you'll hear from the other ROTCs. However, even if that should not come to pass and you're still going to go to a university for your degree, ROTC is always welcome for walk-ons, and we can find pathways for in-college scholarship. So don't think that your journey ends if whatever you're pursuing right now doesn't pan out. So next slide, please. For the high school scholarship program, some of the numbers were mentioned earlier, but the main one for those focused, 17 years of age at time of contracting, or above the 17 years of age, which in most cases is not an issue, and 30 by the time of commissioning. So for most of the people in this crowd, I assume we're not having that issue. U.S. citizen, at least by the time of scholarship activation. So again, more bigger aperture for people who want to apply. The main focus for a lot of people is that middle column in terms of what numbers are we looking for. So for the high school level, we're looking at 1240 plus SAT, 26 plus ACT, and then a 3.0 GPA above the board. So keep that in mind as you're going through your final semesters. We do have a fitness requirement for the application process for high school scholarship, and it's very similar to the Air Force PT test. So it's a mile and a half run, and then push-ups and sit-ups, and that can be done with your local high school. And then there'll be an interview with myself, one of the other cadre members, or one of the other individuals who work the academy application process. So it's very similar. Again, I encourage you to work it in tandem. Next slide, please. The program is very, very much like you're just going to have another set of courses at university. So you'll have PT in the morning twice a week. You'll do aerospace studies courses depending on what grade level you are. It'll depend on how much of that is added onto your academic workload. And then the main thing is our leadership laboratory. And that's where we basically teach military instruction in terms of building leadership. And then in the between sophomore and junior, we have field training. That's our boot camp where we stress test the individuals and lead you into professional officer candidates. Next slide, please. Staying in the program, I'm speaking from the University of New Mexico, who also, we have cross-town programs with C&M and New Mexico Tech, and a couple other schools, mostly those two though. And then stay in the program 2.5 GPA as you're going through college, a minimum of 8.5 or 85 on the PFA, passing an Air Force officer qualification test or FOQT, and then similar to the academy, we have a DOGR requirement. So you would have to be able to pass that medically. Next slide, please. So again, I'm from the University of New Mexico, Detachment 510, that's who I represent. That's our little icon and the main universities that we feed from. And next slide. Right now, we are in our own facility. However, and the other services may mention this as well, we're building a joint facility. So all 3 ROTCs are going to be taught in one building here at the University of New Mexico campus. So it should be fully fleshed out and ready to go by fall of 22. So for those of you who would join us, you'd be one of the last groups in our old facilities as we move into this brand new facility for all of our ROTC. Next slide, please. I'm going to show off our floor because it has the joint cadet lounge. So in the top right-hand corner, that purple area, that'd be where you would be intermingling with all the other services cadets on top of our own areas, which are in red. So that's our floor. Next slide, please. I'm again, Major Brent Lacey. I'm available at all times. Those are some contact information. Reach out to me at any time and I'll help you transition, or I can help you assist you with some of the academy stuff as well. So, thank you.
All right, how are you guys doing tonight? Thanks for having me. My name is Major Steve Gilbert. I'm the Southwest Admissions Officer up here at West Point. So I cover the Southwest, Colorado, New Mexico, all the way over to Tennessee, but I'm actually stationed here at West Point. I graduated high school in 2006 in Albuquerque and came to West Point for 4 years and was a systems management major. Graduated in 2010 as a infantry officer. From there, I served in northern New York for my platoon leader time. And then I was in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, deployed twice to Afghanistan while I was there, and then did company command with the 101st. And just recently received my bachelor degree, master's in business, all paid for through the Army. So tell you guys that just so you can kind of see what maybe 10 years look like. You may not do that quite that much moving. Some of that was voluntary on my part, but that's kind of what it could look like depending on what job you choose through the Army, whether it's aviation, cyber, med services, and anything in between. So West Point, as I mentioned, is in New York. It's about an hour north of New York City, right there on the Hudson. And it's the longest continuously garrisoned military installation in the United States. Started as Fortress West Point during the American Revolution, and then was established as the first military academy in 1802 by President Jefferson. When you think about West Point, you think about leadership, and the reason for that, not only do we have the longest history, we have U.S. presidents and 4- and 5-star generals, but it's because the asset that the Army brings to the table is one of people. When you add the reserves and the Guard, we have over 1 million man Army, and those soldiers need leaders. And so by the time you graduate West Point within 12 to 18 months, no matter what job you choose, what I can guarantee you is that you will be leading soldiers. You'll be in charge of a platoon between 20 and 35 people. And that's a guarantee, no matter what job you choose. And so because of that, we have to make sure you're ready by the time you leave here after your 47-month experience. So whether it's Fortune 500 companies, CEOs, you think of basketball and you think of leadership, you think of Coach K. And so that's why we put so much focus on that at West Point. What I'm going to talk about today, we'll talk about the pillars that we use to get there. But it's important to note that you're coming to West Point to serve as a 2nd lieutenant and be a platoon leader. That's your ultimate goal. And we'll talk about leadership development and academics and athletics. Those are really just the tools that we use to make sure you can get there. So next slide. First, when we talk about academics, West Point actually has the largest selection of majors of all the service academies. We have 36 for you to choose from. While we are the oldest engineering school and a top-tier engineering school, no matter what discipline you're focusing on, you're going to be able to choose any one of these majors. We have a broad core curriculum So everyone's going to receive a Bachelor's of Science degree. And then, depending on what you choose, you're still, if you're a nuclear engineer, you're still going to be taking philosophy and geography and economics. If you choose to major in literature, you're still going to take a track in engineering and your languages. And the reason for that is to make sure all cadets graduate with a broad baseline of knowledge that they can be successful, because the environment that they're going to be in, they're going to need to make decisions quickly in ambiguous situations. So that curriculum is very important to us. Next slide. The next portion that we'll leverage quite heavily is obviously our military and training aspects, both during the academic year and during the summer for leadership development. So we utilize a crawl, walk, run methodology at West Point. Your first year, you're going to be learning how to follow, learning your individual soldier skills, how to walk, how to talk, how to do everything Army, how to qualify on your individual weapon system, do land navigation. And then as you get to your second year, that's when you're going to first get other cadets that you're responsible for and really start flexing those leadership muscles and developing your leadership philosophy. From then on, during the academic years, you're going to be, as a junior and a senior, you'll be a squad leader, platoon leader, all the way up to the first captain in charge of the corps. Really developing that leadership philosophy. You'll have officers and commissioned officers at the company level there to help train and mentor you throughout that process. And then you'll do your leadership details during the summer, where you're going to be training lower class cadets from a leadership position. Next slide. As you get to those second 2 years, you'll get more and more opportunities throughout the summer as you get through some of the required items. You'll have the opportunity to attend military schools. You'll get to go, all over the world. You'll have the opportunity to go all over the world for some really neat military schools. You'll see, Chilean mountaineering, Brazilian mountaineering schools. I went to sniper employment and survival, evasion, resistance, escape school while I was a cadet. Schools that are relatively hard to come by for people in the Army, but West Pointers get an opportunity to attend those schools. So they've got a skill set they can immediately give back to the Army once they graduate, and also have something on their uniform and something to be proud of. So also during those summers, we have a vast array of individual advanced development, which is really just the word we use for things that they look a lot like internships. So I'll talk about a little bit of that on the next slide, but I'm always amazed talking to cadets, the places they're going, the things they're doing. It's usually through their major, but not necessarily. I went to Ukraine when I was a cadet just because I happened to be taking Russian. I talked to econ majors, they're going to the stock exchange for 3 weeks. Political science majors are going to Quantico. We're going all over the place. And again, the reason for that is to really broaden cadets' experiences. So again, they're more worldly and they're prepared for the environment that they will certainly one day face. Also during the summers, we're going to send cadets to shadow a platoon leader in a job that they're interested in. So we have a 4-year program to make sure cadets know all the different jobs that they can get out of West Point, so that by the time they're their senior year, they have a good idea what they want to do. And so they'll get to shadow a platoon leader for 3 weeks doing that job somewhere in the world that we have an Army installation. And they'll be able to try that out. And then again, take some notes as they still have time as a cadet to refine and get better before they graduate. And it really matters. So next slide. Now I'll talk a little bit about athletics. So every cadet is an athlete. So you're going to fall into one of 3 categories. You'll either be a Division I athlete, which as you know is the highest competition and the largest time commitment, or you'll be in a competitive club. And some of those you'd be amazed walking around looking at the facilities at West Point, and even sometimes the competition that those clubs are experiencing, traveling all over the country, doing great things. Or you'll be doing what we call company athletics, or amongst the corps. So you're competing in one of 12 sports on a rotating basis throughout the school year, seasonal, for the corps championship. And as we are looking for high school letter men and women and captains of teams, that's pretty competitive as well, as you can imagine. What you see on the slide here is really the physical development program as it pertains to really more of an academic setting. So these are the courses that you're going to take physically throughout your time at West Point, along with your 18 to 22 credit hours every semester. So There's a lot of things on this list. I think the intent here is that you're not supposed to be an expert at all of these things right now. If you're sitting at home looking at this and you're a little intimidated by something, that's okay. The point is we're going to give you the tools to be successful. Same with our academics. You're going to have access. We're going to be teaching you how to do things correctly, and then you're going to go out there and you're going to do it. You might fail a time or two, but ultimately you'll be successful. And that's the point. So at the end of your 47-month experience, you're bigger, stronger, and faster and ready to go for what we're going to throw at you. So, just speaking from personal experience, I love boxing class. I went to West Point. I wrestled at West Point, and I love that. But on the flip side, survival swimming was the bane of my existence. But I survived it and was stronger for it. There's people out there that they'll find somewhere to struggle in all this, but we'll give you the tools that you need to be successful. So a little bit about our application process here. So if you're thinking, okay, so what should I focus my time on to be successful? This is a great slide to understand how we're valuing your application. And so, if nothing else, this might be a good way to break down your efforts. 60% of what we're looking at is academic. That's your SAT and your transcript, or your SAT or your ACT. You can take either one of those tests. Just make sure if you take the ACT that you take it with writing. The SAT no longer offers writing, and that's fine. You can take that. We'll super score the same as the senatorial offices that mentioned that. So just by statistically taking it more times is going to be beneficial to you no matter what, because you can get the same composite 4 times in a row. But if either of those variables change, we're going to take your better scores. 30% is leadership. So that's going to be your high school athletics, your extracurriculars, and then some evaluations that you'll conduct through your teachers. So very important, especially if you've got some time still, make sure you're getting involved in sports and extracurriculars. Don't just shotgun it and be a member of 18 different clubs. I recommend, choose things that you're interested in and try to do well and exhibit leadership and have leadership positions in those. The candidate fitness assessment, this is shared by the Naval Academy and Air Force Academy. It's the same assessment. I just want to highlight, we do require videos for the pull-up event and the push-up event. So we'll accept scores from either of those if you get tested through any of those other applications, but you will need to provide us some videos after the fact is fine. And then our application deadline is January 31st. So definitely you can do this concurrently with your nomination applications, but make sure you get those nominations done as those deadlines are earlier. So that's all I've got. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact info in the chat. If you think of anything, go ahead and put it in there. I'll make sure we get an answer for you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Savini. I am the enrollment officer at the University of New Mexico Army ROTC program. I'm a retired Army officer. I served 24 years in the infantry, and I received my commission from the University of New Hampshire ROTC program. I didn't get it right, so they made me come back, and now I work as an Army civilian working for the ROTC program. Next slide, please. So something about Army ROTC that makes us different. We produce almost 70% of the officers for the Army each year. We have more scholarship opportunities across the board because we are the largest service. And as Major Lacey mentioned about Air Force ROTC, we do also have, beyond the high school scholarship program, we have the campus scholarship opportunities as well. Something to note is we are located at over 274 programs have hosts at their colleges and universities with over 1,000 affiliates. So for example, Northern Arizona University is the host program, but Embry-Riddle is one of their satellites. So we're located all over. Pretty much if there's a major university in the area, we have an ROTC program there. We also have a lot of different extracurricular activities. And as Major Gilbert mentioned, we're not quite as neat and cool as West Point is, but at the end of the day, you can get involved on the college campus and still be in ROTC. And finally, the other thing that I'd like to talk about that makes us a little bit different, especially with regards to the other ROTCs, is you can serve in the reserve component when you commission. Next slide. So the Army ROTC scholarship is a pretty lucrative scholarship. It offers full tuition and fees at any college or university, 100%. Now, for our New Mexico students, I like to talk about the room and board option, because if you're on the lottery scholarship, you can use our scholarship for room and board. So it actually has a cash value. So those of you that earn an academic scholarship somewhere and it lowers your tuition and fees, you can choose the room and board option on top of whatever academic scholarship you receive. There's $1,200 a year for books, and then a $420 a month stipend, which comes out to roughly about $4,000 a year. That's spending money in your pocket. There are 3 scholarship boards in your senior year, one in October, January, and March. The application start point is 12 June of your senior year. So going into this summer, about a month from now, you can start your application. And then you have to have your application completed by 4 March in order to make the last board. Something to note about the boards is competing in the earliest board isn't necessarily your best option. And I'm not going to go into detail about it, but what I do recommend is put your best packet forward. So if you have to wait to letter in another sport and you want to get that file in and make it a solid packet, then going to the second board doesn't reduce your options of being boarded 3 times. And then additionally, a lot of the colleges and universities around the country offer additional incentives if you are an ROTC scholarship student. So for example, at the University of New Mexico, the university has given us room and board scholarships to offer on top of our Army scholarships. Next slide. So you've heard both academies so far talk about what kind of candidate they're looking at. And most of the time they use the concept of whole person. We broke it down to something that's easy to remember. And if you don't remember anything else about what I tell you tonight, remember this. SAL, Scholar, Athlete, Leader. We're all looking for somebody that's academically sound, solid courses in their high school career, good GPA, and solid test scores. Then we're looking for folks that are athletically sound as well. You don't have to be necessarily a stick and ball sport kind of person. You could be an avid mountain biker, a hiker, you could be into martial arts, but somebody that's physically fit. And then finally, leader. We want somebody that has some leadership potential that we can hone and refine, but we also don't want to start with somebody that has 0 experience. So get involved. How are you involved in your school and your community? So remember that, Sal. Next slide. So something that Major Gilbert didn't cover, but I did see it on the Air Force's slide. When you commission into the Army, both Major Gilbert and I told you we were infantry officers, and we have 17 basic branches that you as a commissioned lieutenant can enter into. And they're listed on the left-hand side of the slide. Those are your basic branches. After that period, you can turn around and serve in different fields and branch out. Major Gilbert's serving as an admissions guy at West Point. I did a stint working with the Army National Guard. So there's different opportunities as you progress, or you can stay in your basic career field. Some of the other options, again, I want to highlight that after you commission, you could serve immediately in the Army Reserve or the Army National Guard. So you don't have to go active duty. We also have a nursing option. And then we have educational delay, which means if you want to go to medical school, dental school, veterinary school, one of those different career fields, you can apply for educational delay and seek that advanced degree to then come into the Army after you're done in one of those particular career fields. If you want to pursue a civilian career and you still want to serve, the Army ROTC was the only component commissioning source that allowed their commissionees to go into the reserve component. If somebody else knows something different, then they'll tell you along the way. Next slide, please. So what is it like being a cadet on campus? Well, we regard you as a student first. You have to get a degree, otherwise you can't commission. So for Army ROTC, you're going to have a 1 to 3 credit class. It's going to meet once or twice a week, and it's going to be sort of kind of like a regular academic class, typically taught by one of our uniformed cadre members. And then we have leadership labs, which is where you do your hands-on Army type training. We do physical fitness training on campus. We have extracurricular activities, and I'll show you some pictures of those in a minute. We have clubs, we have military schools, and we have summer training. So again, I'll dovetail off what Major Gilbert says. We don't get as many kinds of those opportunities as USMA does, but we do have opportunities to attend summer training, both in the Army, doing airborne air assault school, things of that nature. We do internships with some of the industries and some of the units out in the Army. The bottom line, and this is the highlight here, is if you want to experience a traditional college environment and still earn your commission, then ROTC may be the right choice for you. As Major Lacey also said, I want to say we don't have a problem being the backup plan. We always recommend apply to everything. The worst thing that could happen is everybody tells you no. The best thing that could happen is you have options. For our application, you're going to need your transcripts, your ACT, SAT. You're going to have to do a fitness assessment and then an interview. And I'll reiterate what everybody said about the interview: prepare and don't go in cold. Next slide, please. So these are just some examples of how we operate in and around campus and how we stay involved as a Corps of Cadets and as part of the community. Barring that, I'll leave my contact information. I will tell you that I will help any of you that are interested, regardless of whether you want to go to UNM. I do the interviews for the local area. Give me a call if you have questions about anything in the Southwest region. I know most of my counterparts, and I will help you go wherever you want to go. Thank you for your time.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Cameron Dan, USNA class of 2013, Naval Aviator by trade and training, and now the admissions counselor for the Western United States. And if you do choose to apply to us, I will be your admissions counselor and help guide you throughout the process. Slide, please. Keep going. As we get started, you're going to notice a lot of similarities between this presentation and the other presentation. There are a lot of crossover between us and the other service academies. We try and focus on what sets USNA apart. All of this is going to be common to all the service academies: very low student to faculty ratio, high graduation rate. You're not paying tuition to go here. You're going to be employed after graduation. Next slide. So our beautiful campus is called The Yard. It's located in downtown Annapolis, Maryland, which is the capital of the state. About 25 miles equidistant between Baltimore and Washington, D.C. An absolute ton of history to see and stuff to experience during your 4 years there. Now, the Brigade of Midshipmen, which is our student body, all 4,000 plus of them reside in one building. That's Bancroft Hall. That's the biggest building you see there in the center, shaped like the big I. And that building is massive and houses all the facilities you see there on the left: barbershop, midshipman store, laundry, post office, brigade medical, and 22 different athletic facilities are also scattered throughout the yard. Too many to go over right here. The thing is, as a midshipman, all of those service and facilities are free to you. The only one that's not is the midshipman store, where you get snacks, supplements, clothes, etc. That you do have to pay for. Now our student body, again called the Brigade of Midshipmen, we pull from all 50 states, all United States territories, and some from foreign countries, although the process to become a foreign midshipman is a little bit different. The point is you're going to be seeing and interacting with foreign students while you're there on the yard. Midshipmen come from all different backgrounds, all different walks of life. We even pull from very hard charging active duty sailors and Marines who have really proven themselves to go through an officer commissioning program. We bring about 200 of those in per year, usually through the prep school program, which we'll talk about in a little while. Slide, please. Keep going. Now, again, there's a lot of similarities in our education, the benefits that you go by going here. You're going to graduate with a Bachelor of Science and a career in the Navy or Marine Corps. You do get paid to go here. starts low and increases throughout your years. Again, full scholarship, full tuition, room, board, medical, dental. You can be dropped off by your parents, and we tell them that we'll provide you for at least the next 9 years, 4 years at the Naval Academy, and then 5 years in your career after. Now, there's a little too much to go over in terms of Navy career paths. So if anyone has questions about specific career paths, whether that's surface warfare, aviation, special warfare, submarines, Marine Corps, be more than happy to answer them during our Q&A session. Slide, please. These are our 25 academic majors. As you might guess, we are a very STEM-focused school. I won't go through them one by one, but I will highlight some of the newest ones. Our newest in the Engineering and Weapons Department is Nuclear Engineering. That program is only about 6 years old. Very good if you're an aspiring submariner. However, that being said, your service assignment, your service community that you're in the Navy is completely disconnected from your major. The best choice is to study what you're interested in, and that will give you the best chance for success at the Academy. The other and the most newest major overall is cyber operations. In fact, we just opened a dedicated cyber operations building called Hopper Hall on the yard, and that is where all those major courses are taught. Professors from a ton of different backgrounds, a lot of them coming from cyber operations fields, active NSA operative or former NSA operatives. Very, very cool stuff we got in there. That doesn't mean you have to major in STEM. We do have humanities and social sciences there on the right. However, if you do choose to major in one of those, you have to minor in one of the languages you see on the bottom right. You can also minor in a language if you're majoring in math or science or engineering. It's just less common. Slide, please. Now, like every other academy, you're also going to be an athlete in some capacity. We do have 30 different NCAA Division I teams. I'll say if you are interested in becoming a recruited athlete, unfortunately, I really can't speak to the standards and details of that from the admissions perspective. Your best bet is going to go to navysports.com, find that sport you play that you're interested in, and contact the coaching staff and find out what their process is going to be to get recruited. If you're not at the varsity level, that's fine. Like the other academies, we also have club athletics. I was a club rugby player for a couple of years. Just because they're a club and they're not varsity, that doesn't mean they don't travel. It doesn't mean they don't compete. They perform at a very high level. It's a lot of fun to do. And if you're maybe not so athletically inclined, that's fine too. You're still going to play the intramural sports that we do within the brigade. All 30 companies compete against each other in 5 different sports every semester that is picked from a list of 11 by the brigade. And you compete to become the brigade champion. So that's what you do in your afternoons. My favorite was always racquetball. Slide. Keep going. So a little bit about the application process. Right from the get-go, there is a lot that is required. We know you were asking a lot of you. That's kind of the point. You see down there at the bottom left, the nomination applications is highlighted. If you're here, you're already on the right path for that vote. Just bear in mind that is a completely separate process. Can't overstate that enough. Some people think just because they're applying for a nomination, that is also their application to the Naval Academy. Does not work that way. So on this slide, we split it up into what we require from you, the candidate on the left, and what we require from your school staff on the right. A question I definitely anticipate getting is whether we're going to go back to the full requirement for SAT and ACT tests. That decision has not been made yet. Last year, we were test flexible. If you do apply and are made a candidate, we will keep you fully updated. We recommend at this point, if you are able to schedule to sit either of those exams, definitely attempt to do so. It's only going to benefit you. Next slide, please. So a little bit by the numbers, and this goes for the other academies too. Our acceptance rates, our admissions rates seem really, really, really low. Usually hovers between 7 to 9%. That's sort of true and it isn't. It's a little misleading because where that comes from is that preliminary application that you just go to the website and just click apply. It's a short 10-minute application with just the basics, and about 16 to 17,000 people a year do that. Of those, about 12,000 get made official candidates, and then the real work begins. The whole list of stuff that you saw on that previous slide. Now, the amount of people who actually finish that, get their nomination, and get their medical qualification, those are the only ones we can actually consider to compete for an appointment. That number drops way down to about 3,500. Slide, please. And then of those, we offer about 1,100 to 1,200 an offer appointment to come direct to the Naval Academy, and then another 300 or so to go through our prep programs, both the Naval Academy Preparatory School up in Newport, Rhode Island, as well as the Naval Academy Foundation. Now, technically, you do have to reapply if you are a prep school candidate, whether that's NAPS or Foundation. However, being a prep candidate, it's treated a little bit differently. Your application, so to speak, goes to the top of the stack. It's way, way, way more likely than not if you're applying from one of the prep programs that you're going to get in. Slide, please. General advice, like a strong foundation in math and science, you're definitely going to see, again, a lot of overlap with the other service academies. We do not have a minimum GPA, though, or a minimum SAT, ACT score. Like some of the other, we do super score. We do not look at the writing section, only the verbal and the math. AP honors and international baccalaureate courses are always encouraged. However, know your limits, manage your own course load. It may be better to take, 1 or 2 AP courses and get straight A's or A's and a couple B's rather than 3 or 4 and maybe barely able to manage C's. Again, you got to know what you're able to handle. Again, sort of like the other ones, there is no one answer what's going to get me into the Naval Academy. There's also there's no one thing that's going to disqualify you just because you didn't have the opportunity to participate in a lot of extracurricular activities. That's fine. We like to look at that whole person. We try and balance it between the different facets of your life. And the admissions process really does work. As you'll see in the slide, please. Right down there at the bottom is always the top 4 reasons, but the bottom one I think is the most heartening. We maintain an 89 to 90% graduation rate, and that's a testament to how well the admissions process works. If you are selected for an appointment, it is way more likely than not. If you put in the work and are willing to do what you have to, it's more likely than not you're going to graduate and commission in the Navy and Marine Corps. Next slide. That's really, that's all I've got for you this evening. I look forward to everyone's questions later on. You can follow us on the social media of your choosing for periodic updates with the various admissions deadlines and programs.
Hey, good evening, everyone. This is Captain Mike McCormick. I handle the Marine Option NROTC scholarship for the state of New Mexico. I personally can't speak highly enough about the scholarship. I was a recipient of it back in 2009, paid about 200 grand of tuition for me at Notre Dame. Saved me a couple of buku bucks. So can't recommend it enough. Next slide, please. So benefits, pretty much everything you've heard for every other ROTC scholarship and the academies applies. Big one is, you attend college as a normal student, have 100% of your tuition covered. Room and board varies by your school. After graduation, you commission as a Marine officer. Next slide, please. Just quick list of participating schools. There's about 250 of them across the United States. Most of the major public schools, and then additionally, like 60 or so private schools. Here in New Mexico, the one is UNM in Albuquerque. Next slide, please. So big differentiator between the Marine Option Scholarship and the rest of the scholarships and academies is there's 0 course of study or major restrictions. For example, I was a finance major. I was friends who are history and art majors. I had friends who are mechanical engineers. As long as you're interested, have leadership, physically strong, mentally quick, we'll take you and turn you into a Marine officer. Next slide, please. So requirements, just the 2 big ones I want to highlight from this page. 1, meet Marine height weight requirements. You can find at that link. And then the second one is you have to have at least a 2nd class Marine physical fitness test score. So unlike every other branch, we do things a bit harder. You have to do pull-ups, crunches, and a 3-mile run. Next slide, please. So application package, fairly similar to every other application. We do have 2 boards every year. Due date for the first board is 1 August. Due date for the regular board is 31 December. Highly encourage, if you're interested in applying for the scholarship, you try and get on that early board. If you don't make it on the early board, you automatically get a second look on that regular board, so you get 2 shots. And then also competition on that early board is generally less. We typically have 60 to 100 applications for the first board, and then in the realm of 250 to 400 applications for the regular board. Next slide, please. So last point of contact for the scholarship, replacing me will be Captain Sydney Percival. There's her phone number and email. The application for the scholarship is currently open. You can get in there, finish the application, and apply before your junior year even finishes. If you think you have what it takes to lead the few and the proud, please give it a shot. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Midshipman Warren from the United States Merchant Marine Academy. All right, so here's a picture of the academy. There it is. It's on Long Island. It's right across from New York. It's pretty beautiful. It's a pretty small school. It's actually the smallest one, slightly smaller than Coast Guard. As you can see, it's a very beautiful campus right on the waterfront. Got a lot of little sailboats there. Yeah, it's not like in the city. You don't really have that city feel, but you can see the city along the skyline. It's pretty nice. Beautiful view. You can go to the next slide. All right, so what do merchant mariners do? So the United States Merchant Marine, we sail all US flagged commercial and military sea lift command ships. So every container ship, oil tanker, any US flagship that we have is run by US mariners, including the Military Sea Lift Command, which transports cargo for the military. No, there's not a Navy ROTC option here. This is the only service academy to be an officer in the Merchant Marine. There are other maritime schools, but this is the only federal maritime school, and there is no ROTC program for it. You can go to the next slide. So this is what you get upon graduating the United States Merchant Marine Academy. You'll receive a Bachelor of Science degree and a commission into the military, as with every service academy. And another thing that you'll get is a US Coast Guard Merchant Mariner license, which is very important. So if you go in as a deck officer, you'll get a third mate's license, or if you go in as an engineer, you get a third assistant engineer license, depending on what your major is. Basically, that's the license that allows you to sail on any sized ship. So, you know, even if you're not in the military, that license will allow you to work basically on any type of ship you want in the maritime industry. You can go to the next slide. So this is the only federal service academy that allows you to commission into any branch of the military that you want. You can choose to go active duty and go into any branch. If you want to go Air Force, Space Force, Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines, you can commission into any of the service academies, any of the military branches from the Merchant Marine Academy. If you choose to be in the Merchant Marine and not go active duty, yeah, so if you, as I was saying, if you choose to sail in the Merchant Marine, you'll have to work in the industry for a minimum of 5 years and maintain your license for a minimum of 6 years. So the licenses are renewed every 5 years. So by making it 6 years, you basically just have to renew your license once. And you'll be in the Navy Reserves for a minimum of 8 years. That's the service obligation upon graduating. You can go to the next slide. But post-graduation assignments, yeah, so this is just showing the statistics for how many people go into each of the different service branches. You can see there's people going into every service branch pretty much every year. Yeah, a lot more in the Navy because it's a lot easier to commission into the Navy than it is to cross-commission into a different branch. But you can see that you can go into any service branch from the Merchant Marine Academy. You can go to the next slide. So these are our majors. There are 5 majors, 2 on the deck side and 3 on the engineering side. So on the deck side, you have marine transportation, which is the basic one, and then maritime logistics and security. That's what I'm doing. That's the it's like maritime logistics or maritime transportation, but it's basically just fancier. And then on the engineering side, you have straight engine, and then you have systems and shipyard management. So everyone who graduates will either be if you're in the Merchant Marine, you'll either be a deck officer or an engineering officer. You can go to the next slide. The world is our campus. So this is a really cool part of the Merchant Marine Academy. It's a 4-year program, but you actually only spend 3 years at the academy itself. You spend 1 year at sea getting firsthand, hands-on experience on a ship in the fleet. It's not a training ship. You actually get put on a US ship out in the fleet. People travel all over the world. I actually just got back a few weeks ago from my first sea term. I was on the Philadelphia Express. We went to Northern Europe, across the Atlantic a few times. I went to Belgium, Antwerp, and Hamburg, and London. It was pretty cool. Some of my friends, a lot of my friends actually have done the Middle East run, gone through the Mediterranean, Suez Canal, Red Sea, and then through the Middle East. One of my friends actually sailed around the Horn of Africa, which is pretty cool. But yeah, people go all over the world on all sorts of ships. It's a really neat experience. Every year there's a few people who get to go to Antarctica. It's a really great experience for just hands-on training. You'll graduate with a year of experience already, which gives you just a huge, just a ton of experience. Anyway, you can go to the next slide. A typical day at the academy. Yeah, roughly at 6. Yeah, that's pretty true. Morning inspection. It's usually just on Fridays, but yeah, that's true. Yeah, there you go. Breakfast, morning colors, classes, lunch muster, more classes, athletics. Athletics, it really depends on the sport. I mean, like I'm on the sailing team. We practice from 16 to 19. I know there's like the soccer team practices later than that. The crew team practices in the morning. Yeah, and dinner, study hall, taps usually at 22. You can go to the next slide. These are our sports. I don't know, some of our clubs. For women's, the soccer team is pretty new. That just got going. These are all the sports in the athletics department. So, we've got all the good sports. You can go to the next slide. So this is the waterfront department. So on the waterfront side, because we have such a big waterfront, we have so many great programs. So we've got the offshore sailing team and the power squadron. Those are both clubs that you can join. They just go out and sail boats for fun. We have our training ships that you can get sea days on. And then the dinghy sailing team and the rowing team are both varsity sports. As I mentioned earlier, I'm on the dinghy sailing team. It's a lot of fun. If you really love being on the water, it's just a great place to be. You can go to the next slide. Admissions process, yep. Physically fit, yeah, it's pretty much the same with the other academies. It's not too different. You got to be fit, you got to be smart, you got to get the congressional nomination, SAT scores. Yeah, this academy is pretty hard to get through. We have a much higher dropout rate than the other academies. Very selective, even once you get in. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, that's just more about the same thing. You can go to the next slide. Application process, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. You can go to the athletics section of the Academy website. Yeah, you can go on to the next slide. Yeah, you can keep going. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, at the bottom there's the email address for the admissions department if you want to message them and ask them any questions.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant J.J. John Hu. I'm one of the admissions officers here at the Coast Guard Academy. I was a 2018 grad of the Academy myself, so not too long ago. Upon graduation, I went up to the Coast Guard Credit Mackinac up in northern Michigan, so Sheboygan, Michigan, pretty much about as close to Canada as you can get without actually touching the border. And we did ice breaking up there. That's one of the really cool missions that the Coast Guard does. Next slide, please. So one of the really interesting things about the Coast Guard, how we're separate and different and unique from the other academies, is that if you look at Air Force, Navy, and Army, they're actually all under the Department of Defense. The Coast Guard, in contrast, we're actually under the Department of Homeland Security. Prior to 9/11, the Coast Guard was actually under the Department of Transportation. But after 9/11, with the heightened response to global terrorism, Congress actually shifted us over to Homeland Security, and that's where we remain today. So we're the core of our service is really humanitarian. We're about saving lives, and that's probably one of the main factors that draws a lot of people into our service is that we're humanitarian focused. And so obviously we're there to protect the homeland and guard the coast as it is in our name. So our mission is to protect the public and the environment and our economic interests. The Coast Guard is the smallest of all the service branches. So to give you an idea about the size of the Coast Guard, if you think about the NYPD, New York Police Department, the NYPD has about 55,000 people total. The Coast Guard has 45,000 active duty people in the organization, in the service. So that kind of gives you, hopefully that gives you an idea how small the Coast Guard is. And you'll get a little bit of a feel as how small it is, just how small it is. At the Academy, our Academy is only about 1,000 cadets. Our student body is about 1,000, give or take. So you'll know every single one, every one of your classmates. You'll know the vast majority of the people at the Academy. So kind of that small family environment is what a lot of people like. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as I mentioned, we'll talk about the Academy a little bit. Our student body, like I said, is about 1,000. Those 1,000 cadets are broken up into 8 different companies, Alpha through Hotel. So you get assigned a company your freshman year, and then you get assigned a new company at the start of your sophomore year, and that's going to be the company you remain in for your last 3 years there. So selection rate this past year was about 12.5, 13% selection rate. So just as with all the other service academies, a very selective and very selective process. Throughout your 4 years there, just as similar to the rest of the academies, everything is covered. The school will cover about $300,000 to $400,000 worth of your education. So everything is covered for. On top of that, you also get a monthly stipend of about just over $1,000. So that's one of the great things that attending not just the Coast Guard Academy, but any service academy for that matter, is that it teaches you those financial management skills from a young age. Because most college students who are going to a normal college, not only are they racking up debt, they're not learning how to manage their money, so that by the time they graduate college, they have this load of debt that they need to pay off, and they still haven't necessarily had any real world experience with money management. So that's one of the great things at the Academy. Your second class year, you actually get a $36,000 loan with 0.75% interest. So that's just free money. Here you go. And then most people will end up buying a car there. You're allowed a car on base your first class year, your senior year there. So upon graduation, everyone is guaranteed a job. And so the great thing about the Coast Guard is that because we're such a small service, there's no lack of demand for leadership opportunities. So about 85% of all graduates will go directly to a cutter. So they're going to be going on underway platforms, just as similar to I did. I went on an icebreaker my first tour. And the great thing about that is that you get to practice your leadership skills immediately. You're going to get assigned a division, depending on the size of your cutter, between 5 and 10 people that you're going to be managing. So that's one of the great things about being a junior officer in the Coast Guard, is that you have those leadership opportunities early on in your career. You have those flight school options as well. About between 13 and 15% of each graduating class will go directly to flight school. And I know it might sound a little contrary, but you actually get more flying time in the Coast Guard as opposed to other services, because you're constantly flying. Every single week you're flying to maintain your qualifications, to keep up your license, and you're doing drills all the time. So because it's such a small service, our aviation community isn't as big, and so the amount of time that you actually get on the stick is actually more. Our service retention rate, so just as with any other service academy, you have that 5 years of mandatory service after graduation. So that 85% alludes to the fact that over 85% of all graduates from the Coast Guard Academy will actually stay in service after their mandatory payback time. So that says a lot about our service satisfaction. For the most part, people are very happy in the Coast Guard. And there's a few theories as to why the service satisfaction is so high. I personally think it's so high because our service is so small. And so the Coast Guard, it does a really good job of taking care of its people. So, let's say I were to get, you were to graduate, do your first tour, you were to get married, and you obviously don't want to, stay afloat to stay away from your family for a few months at a time. So the Coast Guard does a really good job of making sure that it's the people in the service are taken care of. And there's also post-grad opportunities as well. Between 75 and 80% of all graduates from the Academy will go on to grad school as well, which the Coast Guard will also pay for. So the grad school program is pretty awesome. Essentially, you're just 2 years living as a civilian with the Coast Guard paying for your education, for your master's or your PhD. Next slide, please. So we kind of focus on 3 different pillars here, which I'm going to go through briefly. First one is leadership. So obviously the purpose of the 4 years at the Academy is to ultimately develop you into a fleet-ready commissioned officer. So the curriculum, not just the academic curriculum, but even on and off the field, is really there to prepare you to ultimately be an officer and be ready to manage your division when you graduate. So it's really there to equip you for being a well-prepared junior officer. Your second class year, your fall semester of your second class year, so your junior year fall semester, we have an exchange program. So you can have the opportunity to study a semester at a different service academy, and vice versa too. We get a lot of exchange students from other academies who come and study for that semester here at Coast Guard. And I always like to make this fun plug. Interesting fact is that every single semester, the one feedback we always get from the other cadets and midshipmen from the other service academies is that the food at the Coast Guard is by far the best. So I like to make that plug, and I can personally testify to that. The food here is really awesome. Our cooks are phenomenal, not just here at the Academy, but even after graduation too. I was blown away about how good the food is. Next slide, please. Our next pillar is academics. Compared to the other services, we don't have as many majors to offer. We're primarily a STEM institution, just as with all the other service academies. We have 9 total majors offered. As you can see, our class, because of our core size is so small, like I said, about 1,000 cadets, our faculty to student ratio is a 1:7. So that's a really great thing about the Coast Guard Academy, in the sense that you get that intimate classroom learning environment. So each class size is, depending on your major, depending on your year, is probably going to be ranging between 10 to 15. So it's a very small class size. And you get that, like I said, a lot of that one-on-one attention from the instructors. A lot of our instructors are active duty, so they really get to incorporate their professional maritime experience and operational experience into the classroom. So that's one of the great leadership development aspects that the Academy does a really great job of. And all the instructors are very helpful too. If you ever need help academically, they're more than welcome to set up a time with you outside of classroom hours to make sure that you fully understand everything. Next slide. In terms of athletics, we're primarily Division III, as opposed to Air Force, Navy, and Army. We're Division III. So one of the great things about Division III is that if you're kind of on the borderline, you're not like super good. You may end up going to one of the other service academies, and you might be sitting out because it's just D1, and D1 is obviously a very significantly higher level than Division III. And so we're primarily a Division III. We do have a few D1 sports, as you can see on the right hand column. Our rifle coach at one point was actually the coach for our U.S. Olympic team. So we certainly have some high caliber coaches in our athletic program. We have 3 seasons: the fall, winter, and spring. And for 2 out of those 3 seasons, you are required to do some sort of physical activity, whether that's a varsity sport or a club sport. Next slide, please. So your summers here are very interesting. We give you a plethora of different experiences and operational experience to help prepare you to be a junior officer. So I'm not going to go through each of these individual summers, but each of the summers is unique in a sense that it gives you a unique experience and certain leadership skill set that they're going to give you. So probably the highlight, a lot of people say the second class, your junior summer, is the most fun. You get to be cadre, you get to train the incoming class of freshmen, you get to train the swabs, and really that's when you really learn a lot, not just about yourself, but you learn a lot about your classmates and stuff. And it's always interesting to see. Oftentimes, the most quiet and reserved people tend to be the people who kind of let loose their inner monster, I like to call it. So that's a really great time. And then your first class summer, you have opportunities for internships. I got picked up for an internship. The Coast Guard literally paid me to go on a cruise for 2 weeks. It was almost ridiculous. It was a great experience. We went to Bermuda and the Bahamas, and as well as Jamaica as well. So some really amazing internship opportunities as well, and not just in the continental U.S. A lot of my classmates went to Guam, the Philippines, Bahrain in the Middle East. Obviously, Hawaii and Alaska are common destinations as well. So yeah, definitely some great opportunities during the summers. Next slide. Yeah, typical day as a cadet, just kind of similar to the previous slide with the Merchant Marine Academy. Reveille is at 6. You have breakfast. Breakfast and lunch are always family style, so you're eating with members of your company and your division. And then academic period is typically from 0800 in the morning to 1600 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, followed by sports period. And then the rest of the time is basically your time. So I would say the biggest thing, not just at Coast Guard, any academy, is the biggest thing is time management. Those are the people who tend to do best at the academies, are people who manage their time well. If you have a free slot in between one of your classes and you maybe work ahead or finish your homework for the day, then those are going to be the people who succeed. Next slide, please. So in terms of the application process, our application typically opens July 15th. You can either apply to early action or regular decision. So both pools are, early action is non-binding, meaning if you get in, you do not have to, you're not binded you're not obligated to accept your appointment. I will note the main difference between this service academy and the rest is that we do not require congressional nomination. And so the entire process is merit-based. We look at all your accomplishments and your leadership potential, your test scores, your transcripts. And so since we are primarily a STEM institution, we're looking that you have those core STEM classes covered by the time you finish your high school career. And that's calculus, chemistry, and physics. So if you have those 3 covered, you're putting yourself in a pretty good position to be competitive for an appointment. Next slide. I think, yep, that's it. And then my contact information, I'll put my contact information in the chat here. And thanks everyone for your attention.
Good evening. I'm Chuck Scott. I'm the Service Academy Prep Director down here at New Mexico Military Institute in Roswell. I'm retired Senior Chief Petty Officer, United States Navy. I also serve as a Naval Academy Blue and Gold Officer, as well as a Air Force Liaison Officer for USAFA in Colorado Springs. Next slide. So the program down here is sort of a 2-phased. What happens if you don't receive an appointment? One of the options is that you could receive a civilian prep offer from Air Force Falcon, West Point Civil Prep, the Naval Academy Foundation, or be one of sponsored preps from the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Sponsored preps come to the Institute for 1 year. They study in a set academic program. For my maritime preps, they are in freshman comp, pre-calculus, chemistry, and physics as their core requirements. Plus, they have several other what I call subordinate level courses, ACT, SAT prep, prep PT to get them ready for their physical fitness test, and so forth. Then that's first semester, second semester, they roll up to the next level courses. The schedule is designed to prepare them to be competitive for their chosen academy. And we have about a 95% success rate with the sponsored preps that come to NMMI down here in Roswell. Next slide. The next category are what I call self-preps. Self-preps are students that may have applied to one of the service academies, unfortunately didn't get in, didn't make a prep program. They decide to come to the Institute for a 1 or 2 year program to reapply to their chosen service academy. They're also set up in virtually the same course selection as the sponsored preps. This is designed to get them to a competitive level. Of course, they're responsible, but I'll help them get in the same classes, physical fitness testing, so on and so forth. And again, this schedule is designed to prepare them for the rigors of any of the service academies that they choose to attend. Success rate in the self-prep program is somewhere between 35 and 40% every year. I have to say that the highest percentage of placements or appointments received by self-preps is the Merchant Marine Academy. They stand at about 60% of that 40%. So students wanting to look at the Merchant Marine Academy have a real good opportunity to get in. Next slide. So the program, as I said, down here at New Mexico Military Institute is designed to prepare them for their chosen academy. We have an academic program that is excellent. The feedback I get from preps, both sponsored and self, that have attended the Institute, talk about the very excellent preparation they receive down here to attend the service academies. They're very successful. Leadership, they get the opportunity to participate in what they call down here the Leadership Laboratory. Their second semester, preps have the opportunity to advance in the Corps of Cadets anywhere from sergeants, squad leaders, troop commanders, first sergeants. They have a wide range of leadership opportunities that can prepare them, again, for academy life. And then physical excellence. We have a physical fitness program that is directed by our health and fitness coaches in the athletic department, puts the kids through programs to prepare them for CFA, for the Navy PRT, and the Coast Guard PFE, if I have any self-preps for Coast Guard. And again, they do a really, really good job preparing these kids to advance, to move on to the academies. Next slide. Academic support, we have academic advising. I serve as the academic advisor for the preps, both self and sponsored. I also work with early commissioning candidates on the ROTC side. They receive night study hall through the Writing Center, math and science labs. They can come to the library, and they have about 2.5 hours of night study hall Sunday through Thursday nights to prepare for classes. We have an early warning system that tracks cadets to see how they're doing. So if a red flag pops up that they're having issues in a class, we can intervene. We can offer assistance, direct them to the appropriate helps. And morning tutoring, we have professors that are on campus anywhere from 0430 to 7:15, available for not only my preps, but also our cadets on campus to meet one-on-one to get specific help, small group help, so on and so forth. Our professors, teachers are committed to see these kids be successful and give them the opportunity to get to where they want to go. Next slide. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you so much to all of the Academy reps, to the ROTC reps, and to Mr. Scott with New Mexico Military Institute. I appreciate the information that you provided to all the students tonight. As a reminder, reach out to us if you have any questions. The academies are more than willing to provide information and guidance. They're here to help you. In terms of the Congressional office, our information is listed up here on the screen. Also, feel free to reach out to us. We are here to support you and do whatever we can to make sure you get a fair shot at getting a nomination. We've got a couple of questions that have come in. Which academies pay attendance to graduate school and require no more than 5 years of service? Do you have anyone that can answer that one? I'm not familiar if any of the schools do pay for graduate school.
Sure, I can take that. I'm Colonel Haynes with the Air Force Academy, but I don't want to speak for the other academies, but most service academies, if you're selected to go to graduate school, they would pay for it. But we all know everything in life is not free. So often that when they offer to do that, you incur a service commitment, meaning you might add an additional time. That's all dependent on your situation. So you'd have to work that through the time. But all military service academies, Naval Academy, West Point, Air Force Academy, Coast Guard and Merchant Marines are a 5-year service commitment, unless you're an aviator and it is a longer commitment. If any of the other academies want to jump in on that, feel free to.
Yeah, just to expound. So there's two things there with the grad school. There's grad school immediately upon graduation. And for West Point, at least, you can have that opportunity 2 ways. One, you either go to medical school, or you get a scholarship through the, a Rhodes Scholarship or Hertz Scholarship or a research-related scholarship where you're going, 1 year away to Oxford. Your service obligation is basically paused for 1 year, and then you pick up with your classmates. You'll be a platoon leader and everything else. Grad school later, after you've, served 2, 3, 4 years, whether it's to go to law school or something else, that's going to incur an additional obligation because it's going to be the Army that's actually paying for it.
We have a question of, after graduating an academy, can you cross over into a different military branch?
I'll jump in on that again from the Air Force Academy. Yes, most of the service academies have a cross commissioning, but it's very minimal. Merchant Marine Academy, as they mentioned in their presentation, probably has the most opportunity. So I will actually ask them to maybe expand on that.
Yeah, so as we stated, the Merchant Marine Academy, you can commission into any branch. If you're going into the Navy, you can go straight into active duty. I believe if you're going into any other branch, you do have to go to that branch's OCS for a few weeks, basically just to learn the ranks and the basic stuff of that service branch. Yeah, but the school does have a lot of programs, a lot of clubs in the school for like we have a Marine Corps club and an Army club that are just people who want to go into those branches, and there's a lot of people commissioning into those branches. It's very easy to cross commission out of here.
We saw an interesting question about how COVID is currently affecting training at the various academies. Can we get some insight from the different schools as to how COVID has affected life at the academies?
So for West Point, as far as training goes, really not a whole lot of effect last summer. There was an effect, obviously, because of the timing of it. So there's some things that we were planning on getting done last summer that's going to get done this summer. But as far as total training value, really no degradation there at West Point. Probably the biggest change, especially being in New York, is going to be, cadets' freedom of movement around the state and country. We didn't have access to semester abroad exchanges and things like that we would normally do during the academic year, as well as just, in order to come to New York for a good portion of last year, there was quarantine involved and that sort of thing.
And for the Air Force Academy, that's almost exactly the same. So just restriction of movement a lot, but they got a lot of restrictions back recently because all of them have been vaccinated. And then just a difference in, how basic runs a little bit. And then the last thing is how they run classes. So they were doing, maybe half in person and then half not. So some of their classes were in person, or they would send 2,000 of the cadets, so half the wing in person to class, and then the next day the other half would go. So just smaller things like that. But overall, we did remain the majority of training just in smaller groups. So I think all academies handled it relatively the same.
Speaking for your Naval Academy, yeah, it was roughly the same, where there were definitely some restrictions for a while. That is starting to lighten up as the brigade is getting vaccinated as well. The bottom line for anyone in this chat right now is that most likely by the time you matriculate and become a midshipman or a cadet, the likelihood is the effect of COVID will be fairly well mitigated.
I saw a question about if you're in middle school about to join high school, what does this mean for you? It means that you are preparing for your future and are far more advanced than I ever was at your age. This is now your opportunity to get your courses in line. As you heard, most of the academies are STEM based. So you want to focus on your science and math classes. So if you're entering high school, you want to focus on your courses to cover those areas and start getting your academic foundation in place so that come your junior year, you can then apply and get considered for a nomination. So hopefully that answers that question. Now, in terms if you are in high school, should you join ROTC? And if you're graduating with an associate's, how will that affect me if I want to join the Air Force Academy? Do you have anyone from Air Force that could maybe answer that?
Lieutenant Bolton, you want to answer about the associates in the academy?
Sorry, I didn't completely hear the question. What was it again?
I'm currently in high school. Is it recommended that I join ROTC? And if graduating with an associate's, how will that affect me if I want to join the Air Force Academy?
So for the Air Force Academy, and just like most academies, you have to join as a freshman. So even if you had, 2 years in a normal college or an associate's degree or anything like that, it won't affect how you come into our school because we don't accept transfers in that sense. So you can transfer obviously to the academy, or you can get an associate's degree before, but that doesn't affect how you still have to do all 4 years, and you still will go for a bachelor's degree at the academy, just like any other academy. And then ROTC, or junior ROTC, does help, just like Civil Air Patrol or any other extracurricular activity that you can do, especially junior ROTC, because it shows, and CAT because it shows, that you're interested in military, you're interested possibly in the Air Force in general, or any military in general. And so we do encourage that. But yeah, I mean, if you get an associate's degree, it's just one more thing to add to your application. Just be aware that you will be coming in as a freshman, just like everybody else.
And echo from the Air Force ROTC point of view, if you were to do junior ROTC and also be applying an associate's degree, those, like mentioned in the comments, those are good examples of leadership that we're going to use as differentials as we go through our selection process for high school applications for scholarship. In addition, if you come to university with credits, and I think this is similar with the other ROTCs as well, tailoring our program where if you graduate in a 3-year versus a 4-year, there are avenues. It just tighter as you get closer to like having only 2 years of college left remaining. So it does put you ahead. However, it can only put you ahead so much. I always encourage JROTC.
Let me see if there's any other questions that I've missed. What if you're in sports? Sports is actually a great extracurricular activity to be participating in. It shows team cooperation and leadership skills. And it also just helps with your physicality. So by all means, if you are able to join any kind of sports program in your school, participate, or even in a private league, it does get reflected in how the academies view you and your health. What kind of college credits transfer to the Air Force Academy?
So we actually don't do college credit transfers as far as I know right now. But if you do go to college and then transfer to the academy, you will be able to test out of up to, I think it's 8 different classes or courses that are required. So you take placement tests, which are essentially, some of them are during basic or some of them are right after basic before you start your freshman year. And then also some AP tests can get you out of classes. So let's say you got a 4 or 5 on the AP bio test, biology test, then you wouldn't have to take our bio for our core classes. So you will take placement tests. And I know people that have validated all 8 classes from that. So that's essentially how they, gear where you are going to be standing. But just because every college is different, they don't take credits from different colleges.
We've got a question about if we can talk about how homeschoolers are handled and considered by the academies and the congressional offices. As far as the congressional offices are concerned, as long as you get your application and required documents in by the deadline, you will be considered for an interview process. That doesn't really change the fact if you are attending a traditional school or homeschooled. I don't know if that incurs any consideration from the academies, though. Do any of the academies have any guidance on how, if homeschoolers are seen differently?
Yeah, so the way West Point handles it, as far as homeschooled, you're still going to require a transcript. So usually if you're homeschooled, you're part of some system. We'll take your transcript. It's going to go and get calculated just like any other candidate. SAT and ACT is the same. The biggest thing probably for homeschoolers is finding teachers for their academic evaluations. And for that, you'll just need to contact me or your admissions officer, and we'll work that. Usually, we can find enough instances where you've had, kind of a co-op situation, whether it was for your physics class or something like that, where we can find enough teachers to get those 4 evaluations from you. But that we'll just have to work with you one-on-one for that.
So I see I'm a junior in high school, and my plan once I graduate is to go active duty, but I'd also like to join an ROTC program. Is this something I can do at the same time or separately?
I know, speaking for the Air Force, that's not really an option. We usually have people who will go active duty, do their first term of service, which is usually about 4 years, and then try to compete for, we have enlisted to officer programs, and then they would go into they would separate, go into university, go through the ROTC program, and then commission. I don't know about the other 2 services though.
Yeah, we have a program. If you were to enlist in the reserve component, you can do ROTC, your college, and serve in the reserve component at the same time. Aside from that, we have a green to gold program where you could apply for Army ROTC after you've served your initial 24 months, and then you could attend college either as still serving on active duty, or you can exit the service and complete ROTC and then earn your commission. And as far as Navy ROTC goes, they have a similar process for both their Navy option and their Marine Corps option. The application process is just a little different. But I do see there folks that come out of the service, but not while you're in serving. I haven't heard of that.
I want to echo that. We also do the reserve thing. We have one cadet doing the reserve component as well.
There is the question of, I'm aware of a Air Force Academy cadet who went to 3 years of college and then was accepted. Still 4 more years to graduate? I believe it is a question.
Yes, so unfortunately, it really doesn't matter how many years you've had in college. You can come, you can take the placement test, you can get out of those 8 classes, but you will do 4 years at the academy. And that's because the way that the academies are structured is that you come in to learn not just about school. It's not just an undergraduate degree. You're getting an entire military education as well and training as well. And so when you are going into the academy, you start as a freshman. That includes freshman training, not just freshman classes. So you could be in almost fully sophomore level classes at that point, but you will still, and then you could double major, you could take extra classes, but you will still be a freshman and have to go through all 4 years because it's a military program along with college.
We have another question of, I'm in the Civil Air Patrol and want to be a pilot. What subjects do I need to study more in the Air Force or Coast Guard?
You can study whatever you want. So actually, I'm a business management major and I am pilot. So once you get to the academy, you can do any major you want and still be qualified for pilot. One thing to note though is that they do look, a little bit more just for STEM. So biology, chemistry, physics, calculus, because those are the classes that you will be taking at the academy no matter what major you are. And so they would like to see some exposure to that if you have the opportunity.
If I could also echo for Air Force ROTC, that would be very similar. How you can take whatever you want. It really comes down to that competitiveness in terms of your GPA as you compete for pilot allocations. So if you are really good in history and that's going to get you a higher GPA, then I encourage you to go after those kind of pursuits.
I'm currently a freshman in high school. I know it's super early, but are there any tips you would give? I'm currently a cadet at the New Mexico Military Institute.
Yes, come see me in my office in Tolls on the 2nd floor. Be happy to talk with them.
Great, thank you, sir. Can you go to graduate school while active duty after already graduating with an ROTC scholarship for your undergraduate degree, or do you have to get your graduate degree separately?
Miguel, I'll take this one. So for Army, if you earned your bachelor's degree while you were serving, you could then apply for, the Army has an option for a master's degree in a 2-year program. So if you're doing Army, the answer is yes.
It's very selective in the Air Force in terms of programs. In most cases, we would push people with degrees towards a commissioning source, and then while on active duty, getting a degree.
Perfect. Trying to see if there's anything else that we have not covered yet that's been asked in the chat box. Looks like the question on foreign languages has been addressed. So we've got a question from Jack. Is it a requirement for admittance? Not sure what you're referring to. So I'm currently a junior and have recently become interested in applying for an academy. I haven't taken JROTC, but is there anything I can do to better my chances of being accepted? Again, ROTC is not a requirement. Definitely you want to focus on the classes that you're taking. Hopefully you have a decent GPA. As you notice, most of the academies do have an emphasis on academics. Anyone have any other suggestions that they would recommend to a junior that just became aware of the academies and their opportunities there?
If you can look into applying to boys or girls state this summer, it's hard to get actively involved in extracurriculars this late, but join a club and try to be a leader in it. And then if you're not in sports, start now.
I think that the question was if you need to get into any academy, do you need a foreign language in high school? I believe, honestly, I can't tell you 100%. That requirement would actually be on academyadmissions.com. But if I were to tell you from my experience, I think I needed at least 1 or 2 years in a foreign language to apply to the academy. But don't take my word for that. Please go to academyadmissions.com. I think it is 2 years of a foreign language.
for West Point, for the foreign language, we require 4 years of English, 4 years of math, and we need you to take either calculus or trigonometry and chemistry or physics. As far as foreign language, we encourage you to take them. However, it's not required.
Okay, we're coming close to the end of the program. So if there are any additional questions, feel free to put those into the chat box so we can address them. I'll give it a minute or two. Well, that's occurring, as was mentioned earlier. Oh, let's see. How often do you get a chance to leave campus during the school year?
So that differs, I think, from every academy, but at USAPA, we have a pass system. So freshmen get 3 passes a month. Sophomores, I honestly can't remember the number, but once you're a sophomore, you can leave almost every weekend. Juniors and seniors can leave just about every weekend, but there is a pass system. So every single time you leave, you have to sign out. But if you're a freshman, you can't leave unless it's a weekend, and it's a free weekend.
Let's say you don't get nominated your senior year of high school. Can you reapply the following year for a nomination? Yes. If you do not get a nomination, as long as you fit that age requirement of 17 as of July 1st of admissions to the academy up until age 23, you can apply through the congressional offices for a nomination. Sometimes students that don't get a nomination will look to attend a prep school to either improve their grades or their physical fitness test scores. And a large majority of those students will come back to reapply for a nomination, get that nomination, and then usually get an acceptance to an academy. What should I expect from the online Air Force Academy Summer Seminar?
I think that they're still working on outlining that because it's never been done before. And so when they honestly have the information in the schedule, then I'm sure they will get it to you. But no matter what, it's a great opportunity if you were offered it. And especially for your application wise, if you attend the summer seminar, you know, that's another box to check off that looks great, you know, shows that you're interested in the academies. So no matter what, I would attend. And I know that, you know, anybody going to that or running that is not going to waste their own time. So they're not going to waste your time. So no matter what, you're going to get something great out of it. You're going to learn about the academy. And then hopefully later in the year, you guys will be able to visit the academy again when COVID has died down a little bit.
We've got time for one more question, and there's one that's for the military academy at West Point, I believe. What is the prep school program like?
Yeah, so the prep school, we have about 240 beds at the prep school. If you get a prep school offer, we essentially hold you a spot in the following year's class as long as you perform well. You make your grades and you perform physically, then we'll hold a spot for you. It's on West Point campus. However, it's a much different environment over there. So, you know, you are active duty at that time. You are getting a paycheck. However, you're really focusing on some of the core classes that are most important and hardest at West Point. So you're going to be focusing on physics and calculus. You're not going to get all those elective opportunities that you're going to get at West Point, because we really want to prepare you for the toughest courses at West Point. And then you're going to have a whole lot more freedoms. You can have your car up there. You're going to be able to come and go a lot more as you please. It's not intended to be a 5th year at West Point. So you have a different focus, but a great experience, and those prepsters are always a pretty tight-knit group.
Perfect. Well, we're coming up to the 8 o'clock hour. So I think there isn't anything else that's come through. So with that, let's see. Yes, we're going to be making the slides available via the congressional websites, and also reach out to those points of contact to continue your journey into the military, to become a military officer. So that being said, again, thank you very much for participating. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions that you have. As a reminder, the letters of recommendations, your essays can all be similar. We do not need individualized documents for each congressional office. So if you just want to focus on just one good essay that can be utilized across the board with both Senate offices and the House office. If the folks providing letters of recommendation want to just write one good letter, as long as they remember to address it to the right office, that's more than acceptable. So as intimidating as this application process looks, it's quite doable. And just remember, we do have a hard deadline of October 8th. Along with that, again, thank you so much for participating. I hope you all have a great night, and I look forward to learning more about each and every one of you as we start receiving your applications. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night, and appreciate the good work.